Thank you. Thank you, and welcome to the school committee meeting. Just a quick note, we have a very official Massachusetts mandated meeting that we're conducting at 7 about the budget. We talk about the budget almost every time we meet, but since it's a publicly posted meeting in the newspaper. Does this do anything? No, I don't think so.
Not a thing.
We can't move the meeting because it's posted in the newspaper, so we're really sorry about the seating problem. I'm just going to throw that out there. You can't, once it's posted in the paper, you can't move it.
There are a few seats in front if anyone wants to fill them in. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 here.
Come down, fill in the stacks on the sides, anything you need to do. Okay, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. All right. So the Maynard Public School Department will hold a public hearing on the proposed FY17 school budget in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 38N at 7 p.m. on 4/28/16. So welcome to the meeting. This is great. We usually only have 2 or 3 people in the audience, so this is a much better turnout by every stretch of the imagination. So technically, this meeting was only originally posted for 30 minutes because this is more of a checkbox, but since there's such interest this week, we will most likely go a little longer than that. When it comes to public comment, we have a microphone set up on the side. You will not be recognized unless you get up and state your name. So I suggest when we get towards public comment, if this is just like town meeting, you're going to queue up and we're going to do public comments. To start the meeting, we're going to try to be as efficient as possible so we give everyone a chance to speak. Yep, so I'm going to start with introducing Superintendent Bob Girardi and asking him for an update since our last meeting.
So on the screen, we're projecting a tally sheet that quantifies the detailed financial considerations for fiscal year 17. We also have some hard copies in the back, but I'm not sure if we have enough, so people may have to share. But I'd like to just run through that tally sheet as best as I can so that people have an understanding of what's on that sheet and why it's put in the locations it is. So in the red text at the top of this document, it identifies the requested budget of $16,867,163, which was a 4.43% increase. And then it also identifies the Board of Selectmen approved Town Administrator's recommendation budget of $16,756,163 at 3.75% increase, which is on the warrant for town meeting. If that budget is passed at the annual town meeting on May 16th, then we will have a commitment from the town for that level of funding. Then the state commitment for funding comes near the end of the fiscal year, and then we'll know that we have all the funding we need to run the schools. That's a process that happens every year, and this difficult process, there are timelines for everything we do. So on that tally sheet, you'll notice that the first section is called additional staff required. The additional staff required category in blue text will solve the scheduling problem at Maynard High School and support other contractual concerns regarding coverage of absent staff as well as coverage for special parent meetings. Those are things that are required as a result of an identification that out of goodwill, the administration and the teachers weren't complying with the contract. As we move forward, we want to make sure we comply with the contract, so those are things that have to be done. Unfortunately, the current reductions, so if you skip down over the additional staff requests, which every year we always ask for additional staff because there's always things that you can do to improve the school. And you can look at that section, there's a lot of things that we could do that would improve the school system to the tune of about $528,000 extra above the budgeted amount that we have. But then if you go down to current reductions required, in blue text, in order to fix those contractual issues at Maynard High School, as well as the other contractual concerns, the difference between, we have to reduce some staff in order to add the staff that's required to make the Maynard High School schedule work and be in accordance with the contract. Unfortunately, the current reductions in the blue text are only $294,947, and the required additions are $339,000. So the difference is $44,053. That means that this level service budget is actually short by $44,053. Therefore, in order to balance the budget, the school committee will have to decide on which of the 3 current reduction considerations will be necessary in order to balance the budget. Any one of those 3 reductions would resolve the $44,053 problem, and then would relieve all of the contractual issues that have been identified. If the school committee wanted to add any additional staff requests, and there have been a lot of staff requests that go through the process of the budget proposal that we finished, the large document that we presented to the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. And then in addition, there are budget requests that are added on from parents' input over the last couple of school committee meetings. If they were to want to implement any of those additional staff requests, they would have to consider the current reduction considerations. So the hard part is that there's only one pot of money, and it's very hard to make the tough decisions as to prioritize what is in the best interest of the school. And we've had a lot of input on it, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more input on what's in the best interest of the school system. So based on the budget for the upcoming year, this document is a good summary of the tough choices that the school committee will have to make during the month of May and over the next several meetings. In addition to the tally sheet, I did bring another document, but I don't know if we need to go there just yet. We have had a lot of conversations about class sizes, and so we'll leave the tally sheet up and probably talk to that first. If we have a discussion about class sizes, I prepared another document, because that's been a very important discussion, and Chairperson Capello had asked me to get more accurate data and more accurate information, so I do have that when we have a class size discussion, when we discuss that. But at this point, I think it's probably best to turn it over to you and to the community to have discussions on what's on the tally sheet.
Okay. Does any member of the school committee have any comments before we get started?
I guess just timeline, it might be nice to share ahead of time what the timeline is for what you know about that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the school committee is always in the difficult situation of having contractual obligations to send out layoff letters before you actually know whether you have a budget from the town meeting or whether the state comes through with what they're projecting. So one of the things that has happened recently was that we had to give out layoff letters or notices of non-renewal, depending on the teacher status, to teachers just in case. In some cases, I'm recommending that they're required on my conversations with our union leadership, with our attorney, and based on my assessment of our contract. And in some cases, they're like the current reduction considerations, they're only considerations. So those layoffs might not actually happen, but in order for the school committee to implement something, you have to give them an advance before you actually know your budget. So that's a real challenging factor for the school committee. So over the next month, I'm sure you'll have more input from folks as to what the best way to balance the budget is, and that will help you to deliberate.
Thank you.
And when do we know a final budget? We have the town meeting and the state. When do we have a sense of that number?
The state has been pretty consistently usually close, so really the town meeting is when you know that the town has committed X number of dollars, and that's pretty close to your budget. If the state doesn't come through, what happens is then you have 9C cuts or other options that the state says, well, we didn't have enough money for anybody, so now all of those contractual obligations kind of go out the window and you have the opportunity to, but that's only under dire circumstances.
And that happened one year. They cut the kindergarten aid funding mid-year due to a bad Massachusetts budget deal.
But
so
that hasn't happened in a long time.
No, I'm just saying, so there, things like that do happen at the state level, so that's why there's a little bit of uncertainty, but.
Yep. So that's a good summary of how the budget isn't easy because a lot of these timelines don't always mesh up.
Gotcha.
And out of fairness to our staff, the contractual obligation is to give them notice in advance time so that they can go get another job. Heaven forbid, you know, if you have a bad budget year, you want to let people know early enough so that they have the opportunity to go find another job. That's, you know, that's why the contracts are written the way they are. It's out of fairness to people. I mean, this is not an easy thing. Every year I hate when I have to go around and deliver the bad news. It's not a pleasant time. Sometimes I've had teachers crying and I've been crying with them. It's not pleasant because we have a lot of great staff.
Any other questions?
No?
So I think, you know, it's pretty clear, one of the jobs the school committee does for you is we balance the budget every year. So we do a lot of policy work during the year, but, you know, we start the discussions about the budget really at the end of last summer. And then we meet subcommittees, we meet with the principals, we meet with the director of pupil services, we meet with the town administrator, we meet with the board of selectmen. We tell them our anticipated challenges, we look at sort of what's trending. So this is a process that really began last August. Again, we meet twice a month, we've talked about the budget at every meeting. So we're definitely trying our best to be as transparent as possible. We are really happy when we have parents here. I'm sure there's some that have come before that can attest to that. It's definitely, it takes all of us. So I'm hoping when we open up public comments, we really do want to hear from you. What I'm gonna ask is sort of, as I said before, just sort of queue up, you start with your name, and then we'll probably take a lot of notes. We won't get into sort of a question and answer because we'll be here till midnight, but what we'll do is we'll take notes. Probably a lot of your questions will sort of start to repeat, and then I will sort of summarize what I'm hearing. We can talk about next steps. So I would invite anyone that would like to speak, unless everyone is just here to listen to me, which I doubt, to queue up at the microphone on my left, right?
Left.
And we can start with some public comments. So again, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name's Bill Thornley from 115 Acton Street. I just had,
We don't have any speakers.
The microphones are feeding the camera.
I know, it's.
Here, hear ya.
Maybe he could turn you more to the side. Yeah, yeah.
For recording purposes only, they're not for projection, because all school committee meetings are recorded. Typically, school committee meetings are not this large with this many people, so there usually aren't microphones for projection of voice. So unfortunately, it is kind of for show for the people. So speak loudly is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
Speak loudly.
Thank you,
Yes.
Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
this is really just I was just looking at the numbers here just really quick. You know, I see that one of the contractual compliances to adding a 0.4 of a math teacher for $40,000, but you're eliminating a full math teacher for $43,000.
I can explain that. I know we really shouldn't get, but if there's something
If it's
I'd
very-
like to
if
add.
it's quick.
I promise I'll be quick. I know I tend to go long. So.
Come on, Bob.
The current reductions required are quantities that we know. We know some teachers come in at first step at a very low level, and so that's why you might see, one whole math teacher at a step one at 43,000. Some of them come in at top step, so you might see a foreign language, or it's somewhere in the middle, like a foreign language teacher on here at 65. Those are actual salaries. The problem with projecting what a point something is going to come in at is that we usually use, it's a business office strategy to use a middle number. So we usually use $66,000 per teacher, but it's a projection because we don't know if we're going to hire a first step teacher or a top step teacher. So it's really kind of an average of what the salary should be, and usually Pete has it figured out where, you're going to end up getting a couple of first year teachers and a couple of top step teachers, and if anything, I would be worried that these are under, because the reality is, I've worked in districts where you do have a lot of point-something teachers, and oftentimes, most people who are younger in their career have families and need a full-time job. Oftentimes, they're veterans who are either retired or don't need a full-time job, but then they're at the top step. So really, I would be worried that that's slightly underestimated, but I'm hoping that you just never know. You don't know how many first-year teachers you're going to get or how many top-step teachers you're going to get based on the salary scale. So it's really an average on the reduction, on the required, but it's the actuals on the reductions.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around like why, I understand it might not be exact numbers on there, but if you're roughly estimating, why would you get a full teacher with roughly the same salary and hire only a 0.4 teacher?
Because
Are we talking different buildings or different licensures?
we're also talking different buildings and different licensures, and again, you have to understand, we have to fix this high school schedule. In
Yeah.
order to do that, and to comply with the high school schedule, we can't have full-time teachers with only one certification or teaching more than 3 preps. So therefore, it's not like a luxury to change to these points, it's not what we want to do, but it's the right thing to do because our class sizes got wacky and our class loads for teacher got over the years of everybody just saying, well, yeah, we'll work together, and yeah, we'll do this, and yeah. It was all out of nicety, but it got to the point where it was an overload on our staff. We can't have that. Now we have to be more like other districts where we do hire a 0.8 or a 0.6 or a 0.2, and we haven't done that in the past, so.
Okay. Yeah, just reading it, it looked like it was from
Yeah.
the high school you were getting rid of a teacher and then Aggie.
Can I?
That's correct, but I can't use the one full-time teacher based on the contractual obligation of them only working 3 preps. So for the example of foreign language, let's say, if I have 3 preps, but I have a teacher who teaches French 1, 2, 3, and 4, he can't teach all 4 classes. So now I have to hire 2 teachers, one at point 8, one at point 2. You see how that's working out now? And that's where the problem comes, and it's legitimate. It's a legitimate problem. We're working on it. We're working collaboratively with the union. The union president has sat down with us every time we've worked on this schedule to try and figure out how to make it work, and this is the best thing we could come up with.
Bob, can I just address
Absolutely.
Dr. Girardi?
Feel free.
I've been very intimately involved with the schedule, and part of the difference between some of the other reductions and the high school reductions is that the high school reductions are due to actual numbers of teachers that we need for certain sections. So you see an additional 0.6 of a science teacher, because in order to fill appropriate requests within the science department, that is what we needed to do for the students who needed continuity there. When we averaged out class sizes and made sure we had class sizes within an appropriate range and got all of the students their requests, these were actual reductions that to meet the needs of the students within their schedules that they had. And so that's part of it too. Part of it's the 3 prep rule in terms of why people are teaching different things and moving things around. But the other component of it was in attempting to even out course load within the teachers and having appropriate numbers of students in every classroom and making sure that we're providing students with the courses that they're requesting. Those are the reductions that are there for the high school. So there's a couple different components to that.
Thank you.
That's clear.
That makes sense.
May I try to add something too? I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so if we know that 1 FTE for math has to be reduced, and we need the 0.4. The person who currently is in that position could apply for the 0.4, but they very well might find another job that is full-time. So if they were 0.4, they'd be making a lot less than their current salary that's listed up here. I hope that makes
Good.
sense.
That makes sense. Phil?
Hi, Phil Barry. I was on school committee for a while. I still don't know the answer to this question, so I apologize for asking it, but I think a lot of people have the same question that I do. When we talk about reductions and staff, is the decision-making process based solely on seniority versus performance? I mean, where does the decision-making process come into play there, I guess?
So almost all teacher contracts have contractual language around seniority being the driving factor. Our attorney just made me aware of a new law that's actually coming into place, but not for this year. In September, there'll be a new law where all unions will have to negotiate out the requirement to use seniority as the deciding factor, and we're gonna have to figure out what we use. I don't know if it's gonna be evaluations or pulling straws. That's something we have to negotiate and work out together. But for the 28 years I've been in the school business, it's almost always been in every district that it's seniority-based decision-making on, last one in, first one out.
So, for instance, we have a great 2-year teacher
Yep,
who's the last one in. So she's the first, or he or she is the first one out.
in that category. And so,
In negotiations, in the contract.
in the contract, it's very clear, the process, and in fact, I sit very closely with the union president, and we go over to make sure we're being fair on the layoffs, and we're following all those rules. Because it depends on their certification, what level they're teaching at, so certain levels, if you're only certified for elementary, you can't bump a high school teacher, you know what I'm saying? But we follow the seniority rules, and we do it that way.
Thanks, I just wanted to,
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Hi.
Terry Caswell. For the elementary level, I was wondering, they're talking about increasing the class sizes, but why is it that the immersion classrooms have full-time aides, but only the general ed get it in kindergarten, where Spanish immersion gets it in kindergarten first, second?
So that's not factual. So let me share with you
Do
that.
they not have an aide in?
So the Spanish immersion program, ideally, when we started it, the principal who was starting it said, wouldn't it be nice if we had, yeah, that light probably doesn't work for you. Sorry about that, we'll fix that. Originally, because just like we have a list of $528,000 worth of people and staff that we'd love to hire, originally we wanted to hire a Spanish immersion paraprofessional for every classroom. We actually created a category and a job description. That was all when we started the program. What has happened is that we only have 1 or 2 paraprofessionals in the Spanish immersion program, and the paraprofessionals, we have, a lot of people there. Another misinformation is that we don't have students with special needs in the immersion program, and the reality is we do. And so the paraprofessional is working with students with special needs. It's not dedicated solely to the Spanish immersion program.
Well, I think kindergarten, first and second have a need solely for the general ed.
There are
Was that-
2, I can answer
No.
that. There are 2 paraprofessionals. One is in kindergarten, and every classroom in kindergarten has a paraprofessional. There is 1 paraprofessional currently that is working in first, second, and third grade, but due to needs is in a variety of places. So it is not solely
My
dedicated.
daughter's in a regular second
Sure.
grade class, and she doesn't get an aid that floats between, she doesn't get any aid, unless the student has an aid in the class that has a special need, which would be the same if they were in Spanish or in
Yep.
general class, and they would get an aid, but
So there are,
there's an aid that does float between those 3 classes.
there are
And the aid does not float in the general ed classes.
that is not an entirely true statement. There are paraprofessionals that are not assigned 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 to individual students, and we can get those numbers and have those answers. But in terms of the Spanish, which Spanish immersion classes have paraprofessionals, there's 1 in kindergarten, and there is 1 that floats between the other 2. But we,
There's not an aid that floats between, so they get an aid.
we can have information around those other pieces at further budget meetings. I don't want to take up too much time with those.
Yeah, there are in most of the general ed classrooms, there are students who have it may only be for 2 hours, it may only be for an hour, but there are paraprofessionals that float amongst most of the general ed classrooms. I don't want to say all, because it might be, that's all I need is to be wrong.
Right, so you have a kid, he's on a 504 or an IEP that needs an aid.
Yep.
In Spanish, they'll have an aid assigned to them through whatever.
For a couple
And
hours.
the other one is the same. I'm not talking about the special ed needs, I'm talking
Yep.
about an aid,
Yep,
just an assistant. I'm talking an assistant. They get an assistant where everyone else doesn't, and if you increase the general class's size, and they don't get an assistant where Spanish does get an assistant.
and what I'm saying is, even though there was 1 that was floating across 3, this year we have found many more special needs in our Spanish immersion program, and that aid has been repurposed in many ways to work with special needs students. And we've actually added different time where a special needs student, paraprofessional might be in a general ed classroom, and might end up in the special needs, in the immersion classroom. So we have 73 paraprofessionals in the district. The majority of them are at Green Meadow. We have a lot of paraprofessionals in Green Meadow that spend little bits of time in every classroom. And the Spanish immersion is no different, which is interesting, because a lot of people have said that the Spanish immersion program doesn't have students with special needs, and that's just not factual.
Oh, no, I'm not arguing that they don't have kids with
Yeah.
special needs, I'm saying that they get an
A
assistant.
dedicated.
Not a child with a 504 plan, they get an aid to help with the class, where none of the other classes get an aid to help with the class, only if that child has a 504 IEP in place.
Yeah, the aid's not helping in the class.
In first, second, or third, they
Correct.
just said there was.
There's an
There is
aid in
a-
the class. They're not helping the class, they're helping individual students. And I won't speak more about special education than I'm required to.
Right, what I'm saying is that the kids don't have an aid.
This is an aid for kids who have special
So
education
this
needs.
is really confusing for everybody. It's been confusing
It is.
for us
It's
to
my
figure out
class. I know
why
who's
we
in the
have
class.
73 paraprofessionals in a district our size.
That's the bigger problem.
That's a bigger problem. So the reality is that we're trying to serve the needs of all students as best we can. I understand your concern, which is, does the immersion program get extra support as opposed to the general ed classroom?
And they seem to.
And we'll have that data at the next school committee
We'll do the
meeting,
best to
because I
have more
think what we're
information for
doing
you.
is trying to get as many people through as we
Yes.
can,
Yeah.
right? So
All right.
So
we'll
we'll try
have
to
that
get more
information
information.
about clarity
That's fine.
regarding who gets
I've tried to
assistance.
ask this question many times before, and no one can give an answer.
Okay, we'll have one next time. We will have one at the next school committee meeting.
Well, we,
But you also have to be ready to believe it. I mean, it's my kid's class. It's my kid's class. I know what happens in my kid's class.
all right.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Hi, I'm Celia.
I'm having trouble hearing. Can we all be respectful of the speakers?
Hi, I'm Celia.
I'm Matthew Logan.
And we went around for the past day and a half for a petition to say why the teachers should not get laid off. And over 227 kids signed it.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
I don't really want to go into huge detail, like I don't want to get like extremely emotional. I just want to say like in
if all of them get like the 4 that get laid off, some of the teachers are gonna get overbooked and overwhelmed, and the same thing's gonna happen that happened with Maggie Jones. She got overbooked and she ended up quitting. And I know you guys are like also cutting AP literature, and I know some of us want to go to college someday, so how are we supposed to take a college course if all AP is cut?
I can ease your mind on that one. Their AP literature is running next year.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent news.
Can we have the petition,
Just
please?
so, advanced placement literature is running and is in the schedule for next year.
Now, what about other AP, like AP Spanish? I know some of us have been working since, they got 8th grade year, and now they're saying you can't take AP Spanish, you have to go to AP 4, Spanish 4. Like, that's not fair. If you've been working your entire high school career just to take Spanish 4 when you wanted to take AP Spanish.
So I would like to add that contract law is the oldest form of law, and we have to respect the contract. And so these tough decisions, we have been working closely with the teachers' union president and the teachers' union members to try and figure out how to do it as fairly as possible and to try and provide the most courses we can for our students. And so I just want you to understand, we're doing the best we can under the contract.
As union president, I want to just make it very clear, I never spoke to you about canceling AP Spanish. We never had a conversation on that. So don't include me in that, please.
I believe I reviewed the schedule with you, was it Monday? I believe you sat down with Jennifer and I, and we reviewed the schedule on Monday, in which we showed you all of the courses that the teachers were sitting.
I mean, we can go into it back and forth. There were multiple conversations where we spoke to, because this goes into some other complexities of the schedule, which again, we can talk about either now further.
It may not be
Chairman-
appropriate for a public meeting, but
Chairman Capello, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'd rather hear from more
Some
of
of these
the
people, so-
community than do this back and forth. So
We
let's
will
figure
take
out
that-
what answers we need to come back with, but I want to hear from everyone who wants to speak. So
We
I
will
would
take
prefer
that as a
we-
note and have more information on the high school schedule at the next school committee meeting.
Well, I just want to wrap up really quickly. It's just like, I think we're all very concerned about like getting prepped for college, and I think
Sure.
that like some of us are kind of nervous, like seeing things being cut and then not seeing being replaced. So I think we're all just kind of nervous and in general want to be prepped for college and make sure like that's
No,
being.
that totally makes sense, and we'll make sure we're communicating everything with the guidance department so you guys are well informed of what's going on.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
please, thank you, and wonderful job.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. Some of the speakers before me brought up AP, and I also have a question about AP. What classes are being cut for AP?
Jennifer, do you have an easy answer for that?
AP Spanish,
That's it?
90% sure.
Okay.
I can pull up the
We'll have
schedule.
we'll have the list for the next meeting, but
But it's, I can have it in 2 seconds.
My question is why you have to cut a class that can help people save money on college in the future if they want to take a college Spanish course. Why we have to cut an AP class? There are many classes. Why do we have to cut classes that are core classes and give people a chance to get ahead in college and save money? That's what I want to know.
Could I speak a little bit to that? So Beth Lynn and I are on the curriculum subcommittee, and so we've been privy to conversations about the curriculum throughout the year and also aware of issues that are happening with the scheduling at the high school. And what we've seen are lists of classes and what the enrollments look like, and also how many students each teacher is dealing with throughout the high school. So at the high school, I believe the lowest load per one teacher was 54. And I think when Maggie was there, the upper end was 130 something. And so that's a huge range, and it's not really fair to the teachers at both ends. So I think one of the things that Jennifer and Bob both have been working on throughout the year is trying to make that a little more fair. Unfortunately, what that means is when we look at lists of class sizes, there are some courses that have 3 students in them, and we have to weigh some heavy decisions of can we afford financially as a small district to run courses that only have 3 students in them. So I just know that these decisions haven't happened overnight, and that there's a lot of thought being put into them, but we're trying to weigh everybody's interests.
Okay, I have a final question. I understand that it's important to cut classes because no teacher should have far too many students and go over contract want to go further education? Will
Yes.
I be able to take a Spanish course through dual enrollment? Will I be able to do VHS? I want to have options. I don't want it to be barred from it, even if that means I have to pay.
Those are good questions.
One of the things that we're working on with Jen Adams, who is the chair of that department, are exactly those options. So we are looking at bringing in a dual enrollment course, whether it's bringing in a dual enrollment course, we are looking at VHS, we're looking at other options so that we can maintain students' transcripts so that they are prepared. And AP Spanish is the only advanced placement class that was reduced. And there were 4 requests, I believe.
So I'm just going to request, with the number of questions we're getting about the high school schedule, that you follow up with Chuck in the guidance department and make sure that if all these kids have all these questions, we have
We can
a
have a
forum for
community
them to get
meeting.
their answers.
Well, so all the students' schedules, especially those who have conflicts from what they had requested, will go to their guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor will express those options to them. That's the process that happens every year. So we're almost to the point where the schedule is complete enough to hand it over to the guidance counselors to allow them to talk to students individually.
And
I'm Ann Stafowitz. I have 3 kids in the schools. I have a kindergartner, a 2nd grader, and a 5th grader. And my 5th grader has been in the schools since kindergarten, so I've been in the schools for 6 years. I have a comment and then I have a question. Just for some clarification, on this form that's the class size, for grade 3, for school year 2014 or 15, there wasn't a Spanish immersion class. This was the first year for the immersion class for 3rd grade.
Yeah, so every year, the way the Spanish immersion program started was 4 years ago, we started with a kindergarten.
Right.
Then those kids graduated, so you had to add a 1st grade. Then you had to add a 2nd grade. This year we added the 3rd grade. Next year we'll be adding a 4th grade.
No, I understand.
This
but
nine-
just
this
under
19 is
policy
extra, I think.
14,
Oh, that must be an error.
That's
Right,
probably
so
just
I
an
just
error.
wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ann.
We'll look at that.
And then the second thing that I just have a question on, I just would like clarification on, because I know it's on the minds of lots and lots of people in the Green Meadow community, is also Fowler, is that what I'm unclear on is that there are teachers, you had talked, Dr. Girardi, about seniority, there are teachers who have seniority and who are getting let go, yet non-professional status educators, as the Spanish immersion teachers are protected. So they're this protected class. So I personally just am confused how teachers who have professional status with seniority are being let go, and then
Sure.
teachers who have been here like a year are completely protected. And I understand that teachers, an English-speaking teacher who has no licensure in Spanish obviously can't stay, if they have seniority, but I just don't understand how that's justified.
So it'd be the same thing as a teacher who's certified in chemistry and a teacher who's certified in physics. If you have more kids taking physics, then you need a physics teacher. The chemistry, even though the chemistry teacher might have more seniority, the physics you would have to lay that teacher off and hire you have a less senior physics teacher working. It's the same thing with Spanish immersion. The job description for a Spanish immersion elementary teacher is different than the job description for a general education elementary teacher. So part of the union rules in the contract are that people have rights based on their certification, and that you kind of answered the question. You understood there's certification issues that are part of those rules that we follow.
Yeah.
So when I sit with the union president and we look at the union list and we say, okay, who's the lowest in seniority in this category, the Spanish immersion is a different category than the general elementary teacher.
So they'll continue to be protected because of that licensure. Since seniority doesn't play into Spanish immersion at this point.
It
I mean,
does.
maybe in 10 years it will, but at this
Well,
point.
so there in theory, we actually have a teacher who has taught Spanish and Spanish immersion, but she doesn't have the right levels. In theory, a Spanish teacher could take a job from a Spanish immersion teacher because they have similar certifications. So in theory, they're not protected from somebody else with similar certifications.
But I think for us who just we keep hearing about all these teachers who are being laid off, but then, the immersion teachers seem to be, the perspective is
Yep.
they are protected. So it's based on licensure.
On certification, which it has to be by state law.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is
Yeah,
Lauren
I will in a second.
Mancini, and I
I'll
also
direct
have
this.
children in Green Meadow, and kind of pairing on Ann's, I have a question. I admittedly did not get involved when my first child was preschool, I think when the Spanish immersion program was being formed. So I don't know a lot about
If
it,
you wanna
as
call
I
a
think
recess
a
to
lot of
this one.
people in town
And I'm not
don't
gonna get into the
necessarily
whole-
understand it, and there are many misconceptions about it. So from what I hear from the make way for new teachers. I think that there's people in this town that are questioning if we made the right decision. How locked into the Spanish immersion program are we? And at some point, can that be reevaluated?
So I will say that that is probably a discussion point, right? So on a future
Right.
addend, for an agenda, we'll talk about it. And I'm not putting it off, but the best thing to do is to have it set aside for like a half an hour's worth of actual discussion sometime. So I'm happy to do it soon, but tonight is not the night. I just don't think we can fit
Right,
it
no,
in.
because I could give you I'm very long-winded.
No, I'm just giving you my thoughts.
And I'm
like-
very long-winded, I could tell you the history of how it came here and all the people involved and the committee work that was done, but that would take a long time, so it should be another agenda item.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that happens.
But I keep hearing in town that it's not up for discussion.
I mean, everyone's talking, no one,
Correct, which is why I'm here. to
no,
say-
I know. So what I'm saying is we put it on an agenda and we talk about it. I think that's the only way, I mean, last year we talked about cutting back band, buses, athletics, so we do this time every year, and honestly, like, this is awesome, like, that everyone's out and actually will share their opinion tonight, so this is what we need to do. So tonight and all through May is when we're gonna button down the budget, so.
Is there some way that we could get some facts on the truths about the staffing of, what is emerging? Is there truly an aid? Because even as people are saying there's not, there's people in the back that I think are in the know, they're saying there is. So there just feels like, as a parent,
Right.
who pays as many taxes as people with, kids everywhere,
Right.
and I don't know where else to go to get the information, but
No, I totally
feel like
agree.
There's a lot, and I feel like we're becoming enemies within our own town because there's so much misinformation, so.
Absolutely.
Is there can somebody write?
Jennifer, can we get on that?
Information on this?
Yeah.
That could be-
So I think what we would likely do is what I mentioned before, that we can have an articulation of the paraprofessionals and where they're assigned. Obviously, there's special education law and other laws that would require some degree of confidentiality with some of it, but I think that we can provide a document that would provide some transparency. So we'll have that for the next school committee meeting.
Absolutely. Thanks, Maureen. So at this point, I'm going to take a motion for a recess of this meeting so we can open the next meeting roughly, somewhat on time and stay within the laws, but then we'll come back to this. So just be patient while we do some parliamentary procedure.
So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to recess the Maynard Public Schools hearing on the budget with intention to return.
Motion has been made, seconded, discussion, all in favor?
This is
Can
just a
I-
procedural
Go ahead.
thing where we need to stick with the timetable that was posted publicly. So we just need to take care of some other items, and then we will definitely get back to this.
Because it's
So-
only fair to
yeah.
people if they saw this agenda and are here for the thing that was next. We
Yeah.
have to let them be able to speak to that thing. So I'm really sorry, you guys, but.
We're gonna go from this
Yeah.
to school choice,
Back to this.
school committee, and then back to this?
Well, we're in school committee all the time.
So, Phil, for the people in the back that can't hear, my motion was for recess from this part of the evening with intention to return. So at this point, we are going to go into the next posted meeting, which is going to be on school choice participation. And then, time permitting, before the 8 o'clock post, we will reconvene this. Because, you've done this, you know that we're sort of bound by the public posting laws. So,
I just wanna be clear.
yeah, so the intention is to return.
8 o'clock on school choice, then we go into school committee meeting.
Yes, and I have a lot more flexibility once we get there.
Minutes and.
There's not as many rules for that meeting.
Public comment too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause-
there's not as many rules for that
So you
meeting.
just go into public comment there rather than
Only
go back.
want people to know where we're going.
Yes,
I think that's great.
we have every intention of trying to satisfy everyone who would like to comment tonight.
Thanks, Phil. So motion is passed, 5-0. So now I will open, the Maynard Public School Department will hold a public hearing on school choice participation in the 2016-2017 school year in accordance with Mass General Law 76, Section 12B, at 7:30 PM, or as close there too. All right, so these,
So-
hold on. We just have to have a quick discussion up here, and you're welcome to participate in this discussion as well. This is a discussion as to whether this Maynard Public Schools will participate in school choice into Maynard next year. So this is just as important.
So I'm going to lead off by saying that Colleen and Pete have provided the school committee with a packet of information regarding the school choice enrollment history, funding, specific grade impacts, and principal recommendations for next year. The school committee has 3 options at a hearing on school choice. One is that they could vote to remain a school choice community, but identify that there are no available seats for this year. Two is that they could look at the principal's recommendations and study the homeroom assignments by grade level. And as I analyze that information, we could have 3 more students in 3rd grade and 3 more students in 6th grade, and you can limit your school choice just to that. In the past, school committees have said that they would just leave it up to principal consideration, but I think this year the school committee really wants to be very specific as to whether they want to, and the third one would be to vote to withdraw from school choice. So you have 3 options. You could withdraw from school choice and have no school choice. You could remain a school choice community, but identify that there are no available seats for this year. And you could look at the principal's recommendations and suggest maybe only opening 3 seats at the 3rd grade level and 3 seats at the 6th grade level. If you choose the first 2 options, which are to remain a school choice community, we would recommend considering allowing siblings of existing choice students and continuing staff members' children choice options, which is something that we've always done. So in other words, you could not have any seats identified, but allow the siblings of people who already have choice their children in, which is a kind of a fairness thing for their equity, and the others. You can, you do have the data on the impact, and there have been concerns about the size of classes, so that's why I think you're taking this seriously and making a decision on whether we should continue to be fully open or whether we should restrict it, and to what degree.
Members?
Ladies first.
Well, it's some interesting things to weigh as far as fairness for obviously families that have already invested. They have children that are already here, for teachers who might want to be able to have their children come in, versus some real considerations that the community has had and we've been having around class size. Do you have any sense of what could happen as far as kids coming in, siblings? Do you get any wind of that ahead of time?
Colleen, you know better because you keep these stats. I think it's pretty random, but I'll defer to you.
Yeah, well, for right now, we only have 1 person on hold. We may have more at the kindergarten level, but I haven't heard from them yet on exactly how many students are on the list to come in. We've told the principals just to hold off on accepting any school choice until after this meeting.
So Colleen, have we, so in the years that we're looking at on our class sizes, going back all the way to 2013, 14, did the previous school committees, because actually most of us haven't been here this long, were any of those years we're open for school choice but there's no seats, or have we always been open?
We've always been open.
Okay, so even with open, I don't see a ton of fluctuation. So I guess my sort of point is, so I think it makes no sense at all to withdraw, because I know Pete can speak to some of the potential financial problems if we withdraw. We get obviously the funding for the kids that are already coming here and things like that. So, I've talked at length with the staff about sort of what does this mean. To me, the logical choice is to stay a participant, but strongly let Colleen and the principals know that we have some concerns about various classes as we move forward. So I'd like to say, personally, keep an eye on this. Let's not be wide open. I like the idea that staff can bring their children here. We have a number of people who bring their staff in already. So I like that that's a benefit if we're gonna be hiring more people. I think it's great that they wanna bring their kids to this community. Siblings of existing just seems fair. If you're already driving over from Stowe, to then have your sibling go to the Stowe schools, if you really wanna be part of Maynard, I probably want you here. I mean, that's amazing. So my suggestion is we stay participating, we say there's no seats, but we allow flexibility. Because, for example, we don't still know the shakeout of the spring real estate market. We don't know how many move-ins, move-outs. So I'd like to sort of give some guidance, but then, if we end up with really small class sizes and lose a lot of state funding, then we might have mid-year cuts to the budget, right? Like, it's a balancing act.
If that's the case, should we say that we support staying with school choice, but we want to leave it open at the jurisdiction of the principals for each?
I think
It's been done in the past.
That's procedurally how it's
Because
been.
if we say that we're full, we can't rescind that, right? Is my
Right.
understanding? Okay.
Can I add a little history? When I was hired, the school committee really wanted, and Phil, you'll remember this. Where is he? Yeah, Phil, I mean, some of the things that you really wanted me to work
getting
on
late
was the
for
fact that we actually had more children choicing out and less children coming in. And our first budget together, Phil and I, remember, Phil, the budget was,
Sorry, I was talking to the children.
yeah, I know, that's cool.
It's all about
No, but I was just talking about the history of school choice. There was a time when we didn't have enough kids in class, and the idea was to add kids and to bring in more revenue. And that, our first budget together was the challenge of choice, increasing and filling those seats. We're a victim of our success.
I love
You know,
the
we've
school
added,
choice program.
we've added really neat programming like the Spanish immersion. Recently, like computer science at the Fowler School, Latin at the Fowler School. Those are the kind of things that have drawn people to us, and now we're worried about filling our classes too much. But you remember 5 years ago when I started,
Yep.
that was our direction, was to try and fill the seats and make the classes fuller.
And I remember one of the drawing points too was our AP classes. We
Yep.
had
Absolutely.
introduced more AP classes.
We did.
And that
Well
really
played,
helped.
Phil.
I know people who left town to go to Acton or
Yep.
Sudbury for AP, and we brought more AP in here.
But unfortunately, we did it outside the contract, which is why we're trying to fix it now.
Oh, okay.
So you know, that was when you were there was a lot of goodwill between you and the union, so.
But I do, yeah, it's great, and I think you're exactly right when you say we're a victim of our success.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Phil.
sorry I was behind the wall.
No, it's good, it's all good.
The kids are the best, Phil.
What do you guys want to do?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
I think,
I'm at peace with it.
At discretion of
Yeah.
the principals.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
can we, I'd like to make a motion to leave Maynard open to school choice for school year 2016 to 2017 with the amount of students incoming dependent upon the principal's decisions and jurisdiction.
And just a second, and then for discussion, and please make it clear to the principals that we obviously aren't looking to see increased class sizes, but the flexibility is so they can, if we have move-outs, fill some seats.
Okay.
But just so the intent behind the motion is communicated to the principals.
Will do.
All in favor? All right. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing on school choice.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? I will entertain a motion to come out of recess and return to the public hearing on school budget.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you for your patience.
Back to the
We are
mic.
back on budget.
Hi, my name's Jen Scott. I have two children at Green Meadow. I don't so much have a question as I just have a comment and an opinion. To me, having my children in school, I find it's much more important for them to have a well-rounded and interesting education that includes full access to the arts, to reading, to music, to the library, to gym. I'm not interested in them having a level of technological awareness that they can get at home. I'm fine with them having blackboards. They don't need whiteboards. What my children need is to know that there's a librarian that's there for them the full time so that they can get a book. What my children need is an art teacher that cares about them. And when you make these cuts, that's what I want you to really understand.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Stacy?
How are you?
Good.
So I just had a question about class sizes, and I know we've talked about it a couple of school committee meetings before. So for the fourth grade, and I know when we talk about it, it's a kind of different conversation, because for Green Meadow, the third grade is currently 6 classes, and moving to Fowler, the proposal is that it would stay 5 classes. So one of my questions is, when you look to the year, to the second grade, current second grade at Green Meadow, their class size number is much higher than the third grade. So if you're talking about the current third grade moving to fourth grade, going from 6 classes to 5, and their class numbers would probably increase to between 23, 24 maybe, depending on movement. Then when you look at the next year, from that current second grade moving to the fourth grade, and if you move that grade from the 6 to the 5, your retention, kind of the other conversations that we've had. So, do you have plans for that? Have you thought about that?
Well, so as we described before, there was one year where we had 5 sections, and then there was this one class that as they went through, we had 6 sections in that one class, but then that first grade teacher became a second grade teacher and kind of followed the class because we weren't going to leave 6 teachers in a section when the class following it was lower. So what you're identifying is in grade 2, there is a larger class, but behind that, in grade 1, there's a smaller class.
But you're gonna have this fluctuation, right? Because we've already seen it.
It does, yeah.
So how are you going to be able to really handle that fluctuation? Because I mean, it's inevitable, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So you can't, I mean, for me, when I look at it, cutting one teacher one year, adding a teacher back, cutting a teacher, adding, that's concerning. So I mean, do you have plans to float people around? Is that what you're?
Well, so just like we've done in the past, if that kindergarten grade moves up to grade 2 and now there's less kids in grade 2, then grade 2 doesn't need 6 sections. Maybe that grade 2 teacher could become the grade 4 teacher and follow that big class. So we've done that in the past. We always analyze the data at the beginning of the year. As you can see, right now, the class sizes, with the exception of the immersion classes, which are generally 25 or a few less through attrition, the rest of them are all between 18 and 24, which is, as I've shared with the data before, the range with all our similar sized districts as well as the range in most of our SF Valley neighbors. And so they're very similar districts. You know, I get worried when people say that because, you know, kids are kids. And I hate to share with you, but I've worked in very challenging urban communities where they have very challenging students and they actually have larger class sizes. So I think that, you know, we have great staff who love PD, who really, you know, they're receptive to all the training. We've actually gone through a strategic planning process which identified additional supports for teachers and additional training. And so that's our job, to get them the training so that they can work with these class sizes and the populations of students we have. But, you know, our special ed numbers are the state average. That means the state average is what it is.
Can I just jump in, because I'm Christy Galatian, I'm a 4th grade teacher.
Sure.
I'm actually the lead teacher here. I have 2 questions that kind of piggyback on your other, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but.
Well, I think I finished my answer. We do have a plan. It's to shift staff like we always have. Even before I got here, there was a habit of shifting staff based on where it was needed. If it was needed in 1st grade one year, it was in 1st grade, 2nd grade. My other answer was that kids are kids, and our kids are just like every other kids in the state, and that's my answer. That's my observations, having worked in affluent communities, urban communities, suburban communities.
So with all due respect to everyone here, I'm a 4th grade teacher, I work here at Fowler, and so my question is this: if what you're saying is true and the 2nd grade class is looking larger, and that's going to put us up again, in the meanwhile, we're getting rid of a 4th grade teacher who is qualified professional status, and then what happens that year when the 2nd grade class comes up? We hire a 1st year teacher to take the place of an experienced teacher, and the class size is, you know what I mean? It's a concern for everybody, and also as a 4th grade lead teacher, this week, 3 of my 6 colleagues in the 4th grade classroom were given slips. So I'm very concerned about that. One of them is a special educator. What is the plan for special education? Are we going to not have a 4th grade special educator next year?
We can address that at the next time.
I'm very
Can I just speak to the?
I'd like to get through all
Okay.
of that.
Let's
So let's
let
just,
them have their
we'll
piece,
take
Bob.
notes. We're taking notes for later. Janelle?
So, you know, one of the things we're trying to do is let as many people come through, and through the month of May, we really want to work with you. Honestly, this is really hard. Because we need to be able to get through all, it's not fair to all this line of people that are.
She went up and asked a question and didn't give an answer.
I understand.
The question, the answer is that we will have that information at the next school committee meeting.
We're trying to be able to find a way to do this, and there's no.
I have a quick answer just to satisfy the people in the back. The quick answer, if you'd like to listen, is that this is the first year we've had to lay off professional status teachers. It's the first year. We have had, through attrition, been able not to do that. This is the first year.
You've been pushing out people before this.
No.
No, so I'm not gonna, if you wanna be recognized,
If you
you
wanna-
need.
if you wanna
I will
answer.
take- You need to be at the microphone. This is not gonna turn into this. We're all working together for the best benefit of the children. We can agree and disagree on the path. We will speak cordially to each other, or this meeting will close. Janelle?
Hi. First off, I'd like to thank the school committee for letting me speak tonight. As the Maynard High School representative, it is my job to ensure that the voice of the student body is heard by the town. Could I just ask all the current high schoolers in attendance to raise their hand? Thank you. There's such a strong turnout tonight by high school students because we would like to show that we all strongly care about our education. Recently, news of changes to the teaching staff and cutting of crucial classes has left many of us displeased. To our understanding, a number of teachers throughout the Maynard school system have been given notice that they may be laid off due to the school's budget. We understand that budget cuts are necessary. However, we believe there may be a different way of going about these cuts. Teachers being laid off is a concern to many students because class cuts come along with this decision. Many of us here are either going to be juniors or seniors next year, and we believe that cutting classes, especially high-level classes like AP classes, should be avoided at all costs. We are also confused as to why the school system will limit the level of education that can be reached by a student who wants to continue their education at the highest level by taking an AP course. Not only are AP courses a huge opportunity for high schoolers to earn college credits, but they are also a highly beneficial glimpse into college. These courses give us the experience of taking a college course in a high school setting and substantially improve the school's reputation. A concern of rising seniors is how it will look on college applications if certain courses are cut, and therefore the variety of courses offered at MHS is reduced. The current seniors, on the other hand, are worried about what will happen to the high school when they graduate, and would like to ensure that other students who go through Maynard High School are afforded the same opportunities they were. Sophomores, freshmen, and eighth graders are concerned as to what will happen in the future and how the changes to the teaching staff will forever alter their high school career. Many students have not only been displeased with the decisions made at the high school, but also the middle and elementary school. Being at the high school means that we've all been through Fowler and Green Meadow, so we know what great education can be provided by both of those schools, and with a crucial part being electives. Once voiced her concern to me, stating that little kids cannot stay in the same classroom for 6 hours a day, and they need to be given an opportunity to explore the arts. Overall, many students have recently come to me with many concerns about what is going on in the school system, and these are the main points. A highlight of every one of these concerns is that the Maynard school system is such a crucial part to the town of Maynard, and we, the students, believe that instead of continuing to build a successful school system, these changes would be taking a big step backwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janelle, will you send us a copy? Will you send us a copy?
Send us a copy.
Will you send us a copy? Thank you, Janelle. And for those of you who don't know, Janelle is our student representative from the high school, and she speaks at every school committee meeting and does a wonderful job.
I'm Lydia Clancy. I have a daughter in first grade. I also have a petition going online that I will forward to you guys regarding the elimination or the possible layoffs of the art teacher, the librarian, and the reading specialist at Green Meadow. My question is, in looking at this, and explain to me if I'm misinterpreting, but the additional staff requests that are not required, if we do not fulfill all of those, we will have money in the budget to keep all the people that receive pink slips, do we not?
No, those were always wish lists. They're not part of the budget. They're there because as part of the process, we always create a wish list. What would we like? We'd love to have an additional guidance counselor at Green Meadow and another math specialist for the Title I program. All those things are part of the wish list. When we put together this document, and as Chairperson Capello said, we spend months working with Our principals work with their school improvement teams, their school improvement councils, which include parents and students, and all that input gets put into here, and that ends up being a wish list on here. So that 528,000, we can't even dream of right now, because we can't balance the budget, because we've got a certain amount of money, we've got to fix the high school schedule, which is going to cost $339,000, and in order to do that, we only have reductions of 294. So there's a long process. That 528 are wish list. They're not in the
So
budget.
it's not, so there are no new positions being created or new programs being created in any of the schools that are then taking away from other staff? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Hi from
Elise?
My name is Alia Goodhart, and I have a 7-year-old son in first grade who happened to be in Spanish immersion last year. It was a lovely program, is a lovely program, and yet it wasn't the right match for him, and we decided to move him to first grade. I think the three things that I guess their comments and questions. The first one is, I feel like I'm here a little too late, because I feel like the pink slips went out, and had I known or realized that it would have meant cuts I understand people are saying the librarian is not going to be eliminated, or the art program is not going to be eliminated, but it is going to be cut. It's going to be cut to 0.8. And I mean, I don't think that most people feel that will offer adequate exposure to our children for music, art, library, and I just think we are all concerned about that reduction in position from 1 to 0.8. So, and I wondered, I'm too busy to come to school committee meetings, or at least that's what I tell myself. And I realized, okay, so is there somewhere that these recorded sessions of the school committee meeting are
Yes.
on the website, or, and I'd like to know where they are so I can read them at my own leisure if I can't come that evening. So
I'll send you the links tomorrow. We have a page where all the minutes and the meetings and all the agendas are listed, and we also tape every meeting for WAVM, and you can watch it from home anytime.
Okay, so I don't have that information, so I'd really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I'll post it online.
So that would be fabulous. I'm on Maynard Moms.
No
so
problem.
That would be a good place.
I think I can find you.
The second thing is, I have to disagree with Superintendent Giraldi about, I hope I'm getting your name right,
Close
about
enough.
the size of the classrooms. Because I think if I didn't, yes, are there urban classrooms that have 25, 30, 35? I probably grew up in a class that size. But does that mean that they caught my reading disability? Does that mean that they caught my ADHD? Does that mean I didn't go through school thinking I was dumb because I would come 14th, only to get to college and then be able to perform because I didn't have to take a second language? That's what we're talking about. I mean, it's not about the number of children, that you can control them and manage them and push them through the class to get to the next level. It's not about that. I do not consider education. I came to Maynard or to the suburbs to get a good education for my kids, not just to have them in class with a size of 35. So I do think size matters. And the last thing is my kid, I know that at a moment like this, everybody starts looking at, well, what about, my kid is the one that's most important. If mine is in Spanish, that's what should be preserved. If mine is in general, and it means cutting Spanish and getting art, then I'm all for cutting Spanish. And, then there are the kids who have special needs, who can't even read. I have a kid like that. Okay, he's below reading level for average class. If average class for first grade is DRA of 16, my kid is not even at 8. Okay, and does he get special ed? Is he on an IEP? Yes, he is. But I can tell you that he just got reading on his IEP in first grade. He was identified as having issues in preschool. Okay, it takes a long time. And who was helping him through his reading in kindergarten and in first grade? Title I. And when I see that they're going to reduce Title I for elementary education to me, that's so short-sighted, because what guarantees success for children in 4th grade when nobody is there to help them, when the class size is 35, when they get to college, it's 100 or 200 or 300. Eliminating the Title I teacher or early reading, which is so the basics of the education. And I feel for the kids who need AP, but I want kids to be able to read.
It's a balance,
Okay?
for sure.
So
Thank
I
you.
don't think that's wise, and I think it's really short-sighted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn, can I just clarify for,
It's up to you
because
guys.
I think
We're gonna start
it's-
our other meeting in a minute, so.
It's tricky. So the things that are under the current reduction considerations are not set in stone as being done, and that's part of what I think will be very helpful, like being able to have the conversation about what are the priorities to be able to do that reduction, for what do we need to preserve and what's most important, and having that conversation with people that are willing and able to come, or send us an email. If you can't make it to school committee meeting, we still want to hear from you. I get that people can't all be there, so we still want to hear from you. But, so I just wanted to be clear on that it's not a done deal about reducing Title I. And these are all conversations that we're happy to have. Was that your thing?
That's okay.
We're right there.
You can still reinforce it, it's okay.
My name's Kathy Cloutier. I actually sub at Green Meadow. And my older son went all the way through Title I. And at first, when he first started, barely read, not even grade level. I mean, we're talking very, very minimal. Now, he is a straight A student. This child gets a 90 on a test, and you know what? He retakes it till he gets a 100. And that is all thanks to the beginnings of Title I. My second child is in Title I right now, and he is in 2nd grade. And I'd really like him to continue on with it in 3rd grade.
Fair enough.
So I think we really need to work on funding the Title I, and we need to keep Mrs. Ringer, definitely. Without
Thank you. So, thank you.
I'd also like to add one more thing, because since I am in the classroom on a regular basis, I have seen music, and I've also seen a lot of art. And what those 2 teachers are doing is incredible. And to cut them is just detrimental to our children.
Thank you. So 1 sec, we're just going to officially close the budget hearing, but when we open the school committee meeting, we're going to take citizens' comments out of order first. So we're going to continue to hear everyone who wants to speak until a reasonable hour. I think we can all agree. So I will entertain a motion to close the budget hearing.
Motion to close the budget hearing.
So moved, or second.
All in favor? All right, so that is officially taken care of. So welcome to the Maynard School Committee meeting, starting roughly around 8 o'clock. If there's no objections from the school committee, I'm going to take citizens' comments out of order, probably till about 8:30 or so. So let's just try to get everyone's concerns on paper, and then I will talk about next steps.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Monet. I talked earlier today. I'm a high school freshman. I want to discuss the potential elimination of guidance at our school. I have been through guidance. I have needed guidance. I don't want to talk about my personal life in 7th grade, but I was pretty much, if I hadn't gotten guidance, if they hadn't helped me get treatment for the disorder I was suffering from, I probably would not be here. I probably would not be at the level I am, because I would never have recovered from OCD. I never would have recovered from my eating disorder if I hadn't had the support before I was able to get therapy. Guidance was probably what kept me through when I was having anxiety attacks during class. If guidance is cut at the grade level where most people develop mental illness, if they are going to develop it, that's going to be extremely detrimental, because people will not have a place to start when they need therapy, when they need treatment, when they need to know what's going on in their heads. I would like to reconsider that budget cut, because it's going to harm a lot of people, and it's going to end up costing more money in the long run, because
Hi.
I'm Minnie Slatton. I'm a mom of 2 boys at the high school. I teach at Green Meadow, and I'm a taxpayer with a lot of taxes in Maynard. I guess, and I'm not here to open up a discussion about Spanish immersion. I'm not trying to bash it. To each his own. Everybody has a program that's a good fit for them. But I guess I'm a spokesman for all the teachers for the district, because when the Spanish immersion program was introduced at a staff meeting, which I wish we had the cameras so everybody could see how it was introduced to us, Dr. Girardi and Donna Degner introduced the Spanish immersion program to us, told us as staff, when this program was introduced, there was in no way, shape, or form any teachers would be cut or eliminated due to this program. And we're seeing that. We've seen it last year, we're seeing it this year, and we're going to see it next year. That's all I have to say. I just wanted to speak up, wanted to know your thoughts on that, I guess.
Thank you very much. I think I think it's very, so obviously the program started before any of us were here, because we're all fairly new members of the school committee. But I think it's time to talk about the program, and I am genuine when I say that. The time is not tonight, because it's not on the agenda, so that's not fair to folks that want to talk about it. It's not legal to do it that way. But when I say we should talk about it, I'm not lying,
Right,
and I will make it happen.
In all fairness to the teachers, we have professional staff that have been here for years that now are interviewing. So it doesn't matter what's going to happen in a month to the budget, they're going to be gone.
I know.
And then we're going to be hiring teachers that have no experience when we're letting our good teachers leave. And we were promised this wasn't going to
My name is Mike Nassar. I have 2 daughters, sophomores in the high school right now. The proudest thing that I can say about the school system is my son Nicholas will be graduating with a master's in education in May, and thanks to the system, we will go on to teach writing and literature in the Commonwealth, hopefully. But aside from that, I don't speak a lot about details. I'm a very conceptual thinker, very conceptual speaker. I know everyone in here, when faced with what we're dealing with, has very specific needs, very detailed questions, very immediate concerns. Mine are bigger. The comment that got me up out of my seat and to the front tonight was, we meet here every year and decide what we're going to cut. Why is that an acceptable philosophy? Why is that? I've worked in the retail world for 35 years. I know labor budgets. I know how they correlate. I know what you have to deal with. I know what you have to have and what you can kind of float and get rid of. But it's all dependent on what we sell and how well we do our job, because that outcome can be measured monetarily. The unfortunate thing now for parents here is that we can't measure what we're doing in the school system with teachers, with students monetarily. The saddest thing is every young face you see out here is going to be able to measure that outcome monetarily later. When they're entering probably one of the worst, none of us in here standing has ever had to enter the world that these kids are facing now. Unemployment, high cost of living, high debt, turmoil across the globe. And I don't think that it's fair for us to accept the fact that we have to continually strip away from them the tools and the necessary things they're going to need to succeed out there on a basic level, much less an exceptional level. So, this is what we're dealing with tonight is a bigger picture. It's a bigger town picture. What I want the committee to think, and everybody out there, put your thinking caps on, because this is what we need. We need to think of how the town's going to draw what's necessary to create the revenues that are needed to support the school system. Because frankly, that 3-letter word, TAX, my pockets are empty. All right? I'm done. We can't do this anymore. We're hammering the people that are the ones that are biggest supporters of the system and continually to tell them you're not doing enough. And that's not fair. We need to look at other revenues, businesses. We need the town to get out to conventions, small business conventions, big things. Find out where these businesses want to do. You hear on the news, you're watching the news, you're surfing the internet, you hear about so-and-so's relocating. Somebody's got to call them. We got a mill that's going up that's going to have a lot of empty office space. We got 13 stores downtown for a downtown that we have to preserve. What are we preserving? They're empty. We need somebody in charge of bringing people here. I do not want my legacy as a parent and as a citizen of this town to be, oh well, we just gave up. All right, so think. When you're looking at this, think of outcomes you can't measure. Think of all those faces that they need it a lot more now than I ever needed in school. I can't believe where my kids are 2 years earlier than I was in the stuff that they study. And they read the news. They read the internet. They know what they're facing. My son knows what he's facing. Idealistic 2 years ago when I prodded him to think about teaching. And the discouraging things that he's hearing about the system and how it works and the bureaucracy and the red tape and how his hands are tied. That's another discussion later. But I don't want this community to tie its hands in figuring out a way to fund what's necessary for these children to go out in the world and be the best citizens and best adults they could possibly be with that in their back pocket.
Hold on. Can I do one thing?
I just wanted to say a little bit. I think that, you know, the room is charged tonight. There's so much emotion in here, and we're so appreciative of everybody's care and concern. I am a high school teacher myself, and I've worked in a number of different places. I've worked in public schools, private schools, and now for the first time feel really honored to be a part of the school committee. So I want to say, I don't think we feel like our hands are tied, and I know how much good work goes on amongst the people up here too. And so I hope, and I have so much faith in Maynard, I really do. I mean, I've lived here for 8 years now, and one of the things I love about the town is that we're a community and that people come together and we care about the things that are going on. There are so many places where people wouldn't turn out necessarily like this. So I just want to call our attention to that there's a strength in this too, that it's not all doom and gloom. So please don't think that.
And can't you go to town meeting and someone can make a motion to increase our budget for the school? Can't that happen?
So just briefly, as the previous gentleman spoke to something that I've sort of been fighting for I don't know, 6 or 7 years in this town, and it's more revenue. I mean, this is like a train wreck. If you didn't see this coming, and the school's not a train wreck, that's not the right analogy, but like, if you run your house and just assume your bills will stay the same, and as long as you make the same salary, eventually something's gonna give. Your utilities go up, in our case, we want to pay our teachers a decent salary, so those go up every year, and they should go up every year. There's nothing wrong with that. And I've been on the side of the town where we manage police, fire, and DPW. If we don't bring more money into this town, you will continue to have water quality problems, educational quality problems. Many people in this room voted no on 129 Parker Street. It's coming up again this summer. If you do not show up and vote yes, think about that very, very carefully, because we do not have many more opportunities. If you do not agree and you think the taxes of the empty businesses downtown are going to raise our quality of life, you're out of your minds. I have seen this budget. I have seen the town budget. This is easy stuff. We want more money to do all of this. Who wouldn't want to work on a school committee who's talking about, adding a science wing, or adding a pilot program, or adding more stuff? So I mean, we're all passionate, and I'm a fiery Italian, so I apologize for my occasional outbursts. But we all want to do great things. There will be painful steps along the way, but as long as we're benefiting the most kids we can, we have to do that. But honest to God, Maynard has a revenue problem. So we have to go to town meeting. I go to town meeting, these guys go to town meeting, 75 to 100 people show up and make decisions for the entire town. Look and see how much money is going to conservation land. Look and see how much money is just being set aside for the future. How about now? So I've been on that side of it. The selectmen are excellent people. They're really great thinkers. But we need to, as a school voice, show up. I'm not saying we go and make a stir this time, but we've got to always show up and make sure. I mean, in some towns, they get up and they stand in the motion to cut the school budget. Thank God at Maynard, at town meeting, everyone just gets up and votes yes. Because I'm so worried they're going to get up and say, geez, maybe we won't give you $2 million more than you need. So please, come to town meeting, and when it gets announced for Parker Street, please come out and give it your careful consideration. So that's my soapbox for tonight.
Hi, Shannon.
Shannon.
Can you guys all hear me in the back? Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, I am Shannon Smith. I am currently a senior at Maynard High School. I will be leaving Maynard High School very shortly, and I will be going to Clemson University in South Carolina. At Clemson University, I will be majoring in microbiology and pre-med in hopes to become a doctor someday. So, from my understanding, from what's been going on around school, is that due to the cuts in teachers, that they are also considering cutting classes, which is understandable. You don't have teachers, they can't teach the classes. Well, if you are considering cutting classes, especially AP courses, how do you plan on, in the future, raising the level of education in Maynard High School? If you are cutting AP classes, you are not preparing students to go out in the world 16 hours away from home, hoping to become a doctor someday because they did not get the proper education they needed in high school. I would definitely not be prepared to go to Clemson if I did not take AP Calculus, AP Biology, US History, World History, AP Chemistry. All of those were instrumental in my acceptance into college and for my future. So I just leave you with the thought, if you want to raise the bar of education in this community, why are we making the cuts now? If we're making cuts now, what does that hold for us in the future? Thank you.
I'm Zoe Lucresti. I have one daughter in the school system. She's currently a first grader at Green Meadow. I've been I've been trying to figure this stuff out for about a month now, working with some members of the school committee and other things, because I am a really passionate, smaller class size kind of girl. I live in a small town, and I actually own properties in other towns where I could send my kids to school, and I don't. You know, like I talk to my friends in Acton in kindergarten, and they, you know, oh, the twins, yeah, they've got like 22 kids in their class. And I like really proudly said, well, in Maynard, my daughter has 18 kids in her class and 2 teachers. And they literally went, no way, you know? And I was proud of that. Like, I was proud to be a Menardian, like I really was. You know, so I thought it was phenomenal. And my son went through Green Meadow for 4 years and had a class size of about 20. I understand the 18 to 22 ratio. A small year goes through, it's 18. A big year goes through, it's 22. I get it. But that's not going to happen anymore, because what's happening, and this is, I've looked over so much data, and then I've asked for more data from Dr. Girardi, who's given it to me. I've refuted the data and then got more data back. I mean, and I'm looking at what I know, the data in front of me, but what essentially it comes down to me and my concern is that there is being a fundamental shift. Because that class size, you're saying it's about 18 to 24. My daughter's class size was 18. This committee looked at the class size of 18 last year and said, we got wiggle room there, and this year she has 23. So the 18 that's on here doesn't exist anymore. Like, it might, but it won't. It's gone. So for us to say that the 18 has become 23 or 22, or actually even 20, which is another question I have when I look at class sizes. My biggest concern is, and I don't know, I'm about solutions. How do we move forward? I think the teachers are phenomenal. I think the parents are phenomenal. I think we should do what's right by our children. How do we bring in line what the parents and the teachers need, you know, in regards with what the school committee's vision for the school is? I don't know the answer to that, but for me, a lot of the concerns come between potential inequities that I hear people talking about, you know, and a lot of the, is it reality? Is it not reality? When I look at something and I see, well, there's 20 in one class and 23 in another, why does that happen? Is there, and I'm not saying there is, but is there, you know, 2 special ed kids in Spanish immersion 1 year and 4 in the general ed classes? And I'm not saying it is, but will that happen as more, because that's a choice in program, and everyone else, I don't know, but is there some way of looking? Or it seems to, for me, my biggest concern is, you know, I don't want to feel like, we don't ask for that much at Green Meadow. Our boiler breaks in the middle of the winter and our playground doesn't drain. I'm not asking for new computers. I'm actually not even asking for a new playground. I'm asking for teachers to teach my children reading, writing, and arithmetic. Like, that's it. And I don't know, as one citizen, how to bridge that gap. And maybe it's about all these people up here, and you guys leave like with a little seed planted in your brain of like, busing. It used to always be, oh, we need a job, the 5th bus has to go. And then the room fills up and people say, no, you can't take the bus. Maybe it was that as a committee, it wasn't realized, wow, you know, we're gonna have bus level outrage over this and we've got to address it, you know, but something has to be done, you know, between, my daughter did not get the same education with 18 and 23 kids in her class, she did not, you know, and I love the teachers in this district. I love Green Meadow, and I will always stand by the teachers. I'll stand by, you know, I just, what is the goal? For me, the last thing that goes is the teachers. You know, the other stuff goes first. Like, that's what our education is founded on, especially, I don't have a child with special needs, but we have 18% of our population that does within our school system right now, 18%. Higher class sizes for those kids or lack of a special education teacher is detrimental not only to those kids, but then to the other kids who are in the class. I mean, and it's just detrimental to everybody. And I don't know the solution, but I think we need to find it, like, soon, before the budget.